So good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this iCore webinar. My name is Richard Johnson. I'm a service management consultant at iCore, and I'm going to be your presenter for today. Today's session should be anywhere between 40 to 60 minutes. There's quite a lot of content, which I'll go through fairly quickly. So in this webinar, we'll be exploring the transformation of IT service operations, and specifically the service value system, which was introduced in ITIL version 4. So sit back, listen, and enjoy. So before we go into the main topic, I just want to give you a very quick introduction to iCore. So for those of you who've joined iCore webinars in the past, you probably would have seen a similar slide to this before. But for those of you who don't know us, so we've been in business now for over 25 years. We're an independent IT transformation consultancy who work with organisations to embed modern approaches to service management. So the picture on this slide just outlines some of our core services. I won't go through the detail of this, but just to go through some of the highlights. So you can see on the left-hand side that we do quite a lot of work around maturity assessments on specific areas of service management. We also do activities around building, designing, embedding. So whether that's looking at modern service management practices or processes, new functions such as service introduction. We also cover things like governance, continuous improvement. So we do quite a lot of activities around designing and implementing target operating models. And then finally, we can also provide consultants to provide coaching in certain disciplines or as temporary resources. So whether that's to cover individual disciplines such as instance or change management, or to undertake more senior director level roles. Okay, so what we'll be covering today then. So we're covering several key areas. So to begin with, I'll provide an overview of the IT service operations model. We'll go through a bit of a history lesson on ITIL and the evolution of ITIL. I'll then go through an introduction into the service value system, or SVS as it's known, that was introduced in ITIL 4. Then talking about how to adopt the SVS within traditional ITSM environments. Some of the challenges that you may face when looking to introduce SVS and the considerations to bear in mind as part of that. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some next steps and resources to help you do that. But overall, the goal today is to really provide you with a clear understanding of how SVS can be integrated into your existing service management processes. So let's start with the evolving ITSM landscape. So if we start with the service operations model then, so the IT service operation model is essentially a framework or methodology used to manage and deliver IT services to meet the needs of an organization. So this encompasses the strategies, the processes and tools that are required to ensure effective service delivery. So if we look at the evolution of ITIL, so looking back at ITIL version 1, which was launched in 1989, and really the focus of version 1 was around standardizing IT. So it was introduced initially into the UK, and version 1 aimed at developing a comprehensive set of guidelines for IT service management, emphasising the standardisation of IT practices. Then moving on to version 2. So version 2 was launched in 2001 with a very clear focus of supporting the business. So within version 2, this really refined the processes that were introduced in version 1 with a much stronger focus on aligning IT services with business needs. And also in this version, it introduced the concept of the the service lifecycle and provided clear guidance on service support and service delivery. Then moving on to version 3. So version 3 was launched in 2007. The focus very much around enabling the business. So, so within ITIL version 3, it really expanded on the service lifecycle approach, focusing on integrating IT services with business strategies. And it also introduced the 5 core publications that covered the entire service lifecycle. So, so you had service strategy, service design, service transition, service operation, and continual service improvement. If we then move forward to ITIL 4, so ITIL 4 was introduced and launched in 2019, and the focus with ITIL 4 was around integrating with the business. So really, ITIL 4 represents a shift towards a much more flexible, agile approach to IT service management, integrating with modern methodologies such as DevOps, Lean, and Agile. And it also emphasizes value co-creation, continuous improvement, and how to adapt to the digital transformation landscape. So what are the key components of a traditional IT service operations? So traditionally, IT service operations have been guided by models such as ITIL version 2 and version 3, which focus on specific processes and functions. So for example, incident management with a clear goal, of restoring service operations as quickly as possible. There's then problem management, which is all about identifying and managing root causes of incidents. Change management with a clear focus of handling changes with minimal risk and disruption to the business. Management, which is all around keeping track of IT infrastructure components. And then finally, the service desk function, which is serving as the primary point of contact for users. And really, if you take these components together, these really form the backbone of traditional ITSM practices. So why transition to modern IT service operation models? So while these traditional models have served as well, they do come with limitations. And I'm just going to go through some of the more sort of common limitations with this. So first of all, silo processes. So with traditional IT service operation models like those in version 2 and version 3, they often promote a siloed approach where different IT functions, so for example, incident, problem, and change management, operate independently of each other. And the impact of this is this can lead to poor communication and coordination between teams, resulting in inefficiencies and delayed responses to issues. There's also the inflexibility, so traditional models are typically process heavy and prescriptive with rigid structures that don't easily adapt to changing business needs or technology advancements. And the impact of this is the lack of flexibility makes it challenging to implement new technologies or respond quickly to evolving market conditions, and therefore, reducing the overall agility of the IT organization. There's then the limited focus on value creation. So with traditional ITSM frameworks, often emphasizes process adherence and compliance over delivering business value. And the impact of this is it can result in IT services that meet procedural requirements but fail to align with or support the strategic objectives of the business. And this leads to a disconnect between IT and business goals. There's then also the operational overhead. So, so the prescriptive nature of traditional ITSM models can lead to high operational overhead. So with extensive documentation, approvals and controls required for even minor changes. And the impact of this can really slow down service delivery, increase costs, and reduce the overall efficiency of IT operations, making it difficult to keep up with the pace of business demands. And then finally, there's the reactive rather than proactive approach. So, so traditional models often focus on reacting to incidents and problems rather than preventing them. So the emphasis is very much on managing and resolving issues as they arise. An impact of this is that the reactive approach can lead to reoccurring issues and a lack of continuous improvement, which prevents the organisation from achieving higher levels of service quality and reliability. So let's move on to ITIL 4. So really then, so ITIL 4 represents a major shift in IT service management and emphasises a much more holistic, flexible and value-driven approach. So the service value system, or the SVS, is designed to create, deliver and continually improve services in a way that maximises value and efficiency. And the SVS, as seen on this picture, includes several key components. So first of all, there's the guiding principles, and these universal recommendations guide organisations in all circumstances and really provide the foundation for decision making. There's then the governance side of things. So ensuring that policies, processes, and procedures are aligned and followed throughout the entire organisation. There's the service value chain. So this is the operating model that outlines the key activities required to respond to demand and facilitate value creation through products and services. There's then the practices or processes, as they were called in previous versions of ITIL. So the practices are a set of organisational resources designed for performing work or achieving objectives. And then finally, there's continual improvement. So the structured approach to continually improving all aspects of the organisation. So together, these components ensure that all parts of the organisation work together in a coordinated and effective manner, maximising value creation and service delivery. So let's just move on then to a comparison between traditional and SVS models. So if we first of all look at integration versus silos, so traditional ITSM models often resulted in silo processes where different IT functions operated independently, leading to inefficiencies and communication breakdown. One of the standout advantages of the SVS is its ability to integrate various functions and processes into a unified system. So unlike traditional models that create silos, the SVS promotes a holistic approach where all parts of the organisation work together seamlessly, leading to a much more efficient and effective service delivery. There's then flexibility and adaptability. So traditional ITSM frameworks can be quite rigid and prescriptive, making it difficult to adapt to changing business needs and technological advancements. The SVS is designed with flexibility and adaptability at its core. So it really allows organizations to tailor and scale their ITSM practices based on specific business needs and technological changes. And this flexibility is crucial in today's fast-paced, evolving business environment. So, for example, a company can quickly incorporate new digital tools and methodologies such as Agile and DevOps into their ITSM framework. And then finally, there's the emphasis on value co-creation. So, so traditional models often focus on internal processes and efficiencies, sometimes at the expense of delivering real value to the business and its stakeholders. Another key advantage of the SVS is its strong emphasis on value co-creation with stakeholders. So this means that IT services are designed and delivered in close alignment with the business, ensuring that all activities contribute to the overall value. So by involving stakeholders throughout the entire service lifecycle, organisations can better understand and meet their needs. And I think this diagram here, shows where, you have a service provider, which is obviously delivering a service, and a service consumer using the service, and you take those two together in a partnership, and that's a good way of, looking at co-creation of value. So how do we adopt the SVS model? So before adopting the service value system, it's essential to have a clear understanding of your current IT service management practices. So the first thing to do would be to conduct a thorough gap analysis. So a gap analysis helps you identify the discrepancies between your current ITSM state and the desired state as defined by the SVS. And as part of this will involve documenting current processes. So start by mapping out your existing ITSM process in detail. So for example, incident, change, problem management, and any other relevant functions. From this, then identifying the strengths and weaknesses. So evaluate the effectiveness of these processes, identify areas where your current practices excel and areas where they fall short. And then finally, comparing this with SVS requirements. So comparing your current practices against the components and best practices of SVS. And this will really help pinpoint specific gaps that need to be addressed. Next is to identify areas for improvement. So use the insights gained from your gap analysis to highlight specific areas that require enhancement. So this might include process integration. So identifying where siloed processes can be integrated to improve efficiency and communication. You may also look at technology and tools. So assessing whether your current tools and technologies support the flexible and adaptive nature of SVS. And then finally, skills and training. So, recognizing skill gaps within the team and planning for necessary training and development. And then finally, determine what changes are needed to align with SVS. So based on your assessment, developing a targeted plan that addresses the identified gaps. So this plan could include process re-engineering. So redesigning processes to align with SVS principles and practices. It may involve technology upgrades. So implementing or upgrading tools to support integrated and flexible ITSM practices. And then finally going back to training. So rolling out training programs to upskill the team on SVS components and practices. The next stage of the journey is then to plan your adoption strategy. So once you've assessed the current ITSM practices and identified areas for improvement, the next step is to plan the adoption strategy for SVS, and this involves several key steps to ensure a smooth and effective transition. So first of all, start by identifying all relevant stakeholders, and this could include IT staff, management, business units, and also external partners. Understanding who will be impacted by the changes and who will play a role in implementing SVS is crucial. So, clearly define the responsibilities of each stakeholder to ensure that everyone knows their role within the transition process. So, for example, involving senior management to provide strategic direction support, IT managers to oversee the implementation, and business units to offer input and aligning services with business needs. Next is to align your current ITSM processes with the components of SVS. And as part of this, this will involve mapping your existing processes to see where they can integrate with SVS elements like the service value chain, practices, and governance. So, so look for areas where SVS principles can enhance or replace existing practices. So, for example, you might find opportunities to integrate the continual improvement practice into your current incident management process to foster a culture of ongoing enhancement. And then finally, going back to training and upskilling. So, so the successful adoption of SVS requires that all involved parties are well versed in its principles and practices. So, so develop a comprehensive training program. That may include workshops tailored to the needs of your IT staff. It could include formal training sessions, hands-on workshops, and ongoing learning opportunities. The next part of the journey is to think about the implementation steps or the implementation plan. So, so implementing the service value system will require careful planning and execution. So here are just a few steps to ensure a successful implementation. So first of all, think about pilot projects. So, begin by launching pilot projects to test the SVS framework in a controlled environment. So, so with this, think about choosing a specific department or process where you can implement SVS components on a small scale. And this then allows you to observe the impact, identify potential issues, and make necessary adjustments before a full-scale rollout. So, for example, you might start with the incident management process in one department, apply SVS practices, and then measure the outcomes to measure the success. There's then thinking about phased implementation. So so once you've gathered insights from the pilot projects, look at the phased implementation strategy. So so gradually scale up the adoption of SVS across the organisation, applying lessons learned from the pilot phase. And this approach allows you to manage change more effectively and mitigate risks to the business. So, for example, after a successful pilot in incident management, you could then look to extend SVS practices to problem management and change management and progressively cover all ITSM processes. And then finally, continuous monitoring. So, so continuous monitoring is really crucial to the success of SVS implementation. So by establishing robust monitoring and feedback mechanisms to track progress, measure performance, and identify areas for improvement. So for example, setting up dashboards to monitor service performance metrics and conducting periodic review meetings. Okay, so I'm now going to give you 3 case studies of organisations that have adopted the SVS approach to IT service management. So I'm going to start with this one. So thinking about a financial services company. So with this case study, a large financial services company was struggling with outdated ITSM processes that were siloed and inefficient. And their traditional ITIL version 3 framework couldn't keep up with the fast-paced dynamic demands, of the financial sector. So what were the specific challenges that they observed? So, so with their current framework, challenges that they were facing were that they had siloed processes leading to communication breakdowns, also inability to quickly adapt to regulatory changes, and also they observed high incident resolution times affecting overall customer satisfaction. So in terms of moving to an SVS approach then, so the strategy that they adopted was to, first of all, conduct a gap analysis. to identify pain points in the current ITSM practices, developing a phased implementation plan to integrate SVS with existing processes, and then really focusing on training and upskilling employees on the SVS components and practices. So in terms of the specific SVS elements or components and outcomes that they observed. So SVS elements that they used were, first of all, the guiding principles, so adoption of the collaborate and promote visibility principle helped to break down silos, enhancing communication and collaboration across departments. There's then use of the service value chain. So by streamlining processes to ensure faster and more efficient service delivery, which improved incident resolution times. And then finally, continual improvement. So by conducting regular assessment and iterative enhancements, ensure the company could quickly adapt to regulatory changes. So overall, then, in terms of the overall results, so what they observed was, much improved integration. So breaking down silos led to better communication and collaboration. Regulatory compliance, so enhanced agility to allow the company to quickly adapt to regulatory changes. And then finally, overall customer satisfaction. So by having faster instant resolution times, resulted in much improved customer satisfaction scores. So moving on to the second case study. So this one's for a healthcare provider. So a major healthcare provider needed to modernise its ITSM processes to support digital transformation initiatives, so including telehealth and electronic medical records. So the specific challenges that they observed was that they had legacy systems with very limited integration capabilities. There was a growing demand for digital health services and a need for much more stringent data security and compliance. So moving to an SVS approach, the strategy that they adopted was to, first of all, initiate a pilot project, focusing on critical areas such as incident and change management, implementing the service value chain to streamline service delivery and value creation, and then also investing in automation tools to support new practices and improve overall efficiency. So in terms of the SVS elements used in this instance, so the service value chain, so this operating model improved coordination of activities, enhancing the delivery of digital health services. Practices, so by integrating new practices such as information security to ensure compliance with data security regulations. And then finally, continual improvement. So by emphasising the ongoing assessment and refinement of ITSM processes, allowing the provider to scale digital services more effectively. So then in terms of the overall results, so this resulted in enhanced service delivery, much improved coordination of activities leading to faster, more reliable service delivery, having scalable solutions, so automation tools enabled handling increased demand without compromising overall quality, and then data security, so by having enhanced governance practices ensured better compliance with data security regulations. Okay, so the final case study is with a manufacturing company. So with this one, a global manufacturing company aimed to improve its ITSM processes to support its supply chain operations and global production facilities. So the specific challenges that they were facing were, first of all, having fragmented IT processes across multiple regions, inefficiencies in incident and problem management affecting the production environment, and then also the need for a unified approach to manage IT services globally. So moving to SVS, the strategy that they adopted was, first of all, to conduct workshops to align global IT teams on the SVS framework, implementing continual improvement practices to regularly assess and enhance those ITSM processes, and then using the SVS governance component to ensure consistent management and control across regions. So the SVS elements in use here, so the guiding principles. So the optimize and automate principle was used to streamline and automate processes, reducing manual effort and errors. Governance, so by establishing consistent management practices across regions, ensure global alignment and control, and then continuing improvement. So by fostering a culture of continuous assessment and improvement, leading to ongoing enhancements with their ITSM processes. So then in terms of the specific results, so this resulted in, unified IT operations. So having a consistent approach to ITSM, improved coordination and efficiency, not just regionally, but globally. Reduced downtime, so by enhancing incident and problem management practices, reducing overall production downtime. And then finally, continuous improvement. So by having regular assessments, ensured ITSM practices remained aligned with evolving business needs. So adopting a service value system is not without its challenges. So I'm going to go through some of the more sort of common issues or challenges that you may face within your organization. So first of all, there's resistance to change. So transition into the SVS requires significant changes in processes, roles and mindsets, which can be met with resistance from employees who are accustomed to more traditional methods. So for example, going back to the financial services company, so they face pushback from staff when introducing collaborative tools and new ways of working. So the way they addressed this was to implement comprehensive change management program, which included regular communication, training sessions, and involving employees in the transition process. There's then integrating with legacy systems. So many organizations operate with legacy systems that are not easily compatible with the new practices and technologies required by the SVS. So for example, going back to the healthcare provider case study, so they found that their old electronic medical records did not support the integrated practices of the SVS. So they gradually phased in new systems, developed APIs to bridge that gap and ensure a smooth transition without disrupting daily operations. There's then also the skills gaps and training needs. So the adoption of the SVS often necessitates new skills and knowledge that existing staff may lack. So this may require substantial training and development efforts. So going back to the manufacturing company case study, so they needed to upskill their IT staff on new SVS practices and tools. So they partnered with a training provider to deliver customized workshops and certification programs. And then finally, measuring the success and value creation. So so it can be quite challenging to measure the success of SVS implementation and really demonstrate the value it brings to the organization. So as an example, an IT service provider struggling to quantify the benefits of adopting SVS. So as part of this, they implement a robust performance measurement framework, which includes KPIs and regular review cycles to really track improvements in service delivery and customer satisfaction. So So to overcome some of these challenges, what are some of the sort of common mitigation strategies that you may look to employ? So first of all, change management best practices. So by implementing robust change management practices to support the transition to SVS, ensures that employees are engaged, informed, and supported throughout the process. So going back to the financial services company, so they use change management best practices by creating a change advisory board, conducting frequent communication campaigns, and holding training sessions to help employees understand and adopt new processes. There's then incremental changes and quick wins, so implementing SVS in small, manageable phases helps to build momentum and demonstrate immediate benefits, and also makes the transition more palatable and less risky. So for example, going back to the healthcare providers, so they started by piloting the SVS in one department and focusing on incident management improvements. The success of this pilot, marked by faster response times, built confidence and really paved the way to the broader implementation across the organization. There's then strong leadership and stakeholder management, so really ensuring strong leadership and active engagement from all stakeholders to drive the SVS adoption, providing clear direction and support. So for example, the manufacturing company, they appointed a senior executive as the SVS champion, and that person was responsible for overseeing the transition and maintaining opening lines of communication with all stakeholders. And then finally, leveraging automation and tools. So by utilizing automation to streamline processes, reduce manual workloads, and enhance efficiency as part of the SVS implementation. So as an example, going back to the IT service provider, they integrated advanced automation tools to handle routine tasks such as ticketing and instant resolution. So this not only improves efficiency, but also allows the IT staff to focus on much more strategic activities. Okay, so just to wrap things up then. So in conclusion, the service value system offers a modern integrated approach to IT service management that can greatly enhance value and efficiency. But in order to plan and implement SVS, there's a few key steps that we've just been through. So in order to get started, first of all, assess your current state. So by looking at your current ITSM processes, strengths and weaknesses, identifying areas of improvement, and then prioritizing those changes. So whether those changes are process re-engineering, technology updates, or training programs. Then thinking about specifically what's the strategy to be adopted as part of this. So identifying who the key stakeholders are, ensuring they're aware of their responsibility. Also looking at how to align ITSM processes with the components of SVS, and training and upskilling, as we've already mentioned. There's then the specific, implementation steps and overall plan. So, the implementation plan may include pilot projects, managing a phased implementation rollout, and also looking at implementation of continuous improvement processes. And then also really, be prepared to tackle common challenges with effective mitigation strategies. So challenges may include resistance to change, integration with legacy systems, and measuring success and value creation effectively. And then the mitigation strategies, so this may include implementing change management best practice, thinking about how to plan incremental changes and promote quick wins, ensuring at all times that you have strong leadership and stakeholders managed throughout the process, and finally, where possible, leveraging automation and tooling. So this concludes our webinar for today. I've included here all of the iCore contact details. So should you wish to discuss further any of the soft services we can offer or have some follow-up questions on today's webinar, we may also reach out to some of you for specific feedback at some point.